Hello, everyone. It's D, probably better known as MTF Doom. And today, on Against the Odds, we're going to talk about four. I can't even finish it. We're going to talk about four different sets of very strong card packages that you might not see as having intrinsic value and you might be missing. I hope you enjoy. So, as the intro said, today we're going to be talking about packages of cards, huge, strong, throbbing packages of cards. And the reason for that is that I think a lot of people, I've noticed this in my Discord, overlook certain like combinations of cards because they think like, oh, I don't have all the cards for that. Or like, this isn't a destroy deck. Why would I include Bucky Barnes? Like, I'm not playing Death Wave. I don't even own Venom, right? And so it got me thinking, like, the ways in which we look at cards and evaluate them can sometimes be linear and limiting. And we can do better. And I just, want to point some of these out because they've helped me climb ranks. And I like helping other people climb ranks. Before we get into it, tease. I know I'm a tease. We're shooting for 1 million subscribers. We are well on the way. You can help me beat I don't know, whoever. What I usually say Mr. Beast, but name your giant streamer. We can beat them. I believe in us. I believe that we could do that. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoy. Let's get into it. Number 4. So the first set of cards is the Shuri-less Shuri package, right? So a lot of these cards kind of get overlooked if you don't have Shuri. This, like, also, by the way, most of these are close to deck lists. Like, you without that much more could make any of these kind of workable deck lists, depending on what you have here and what you don't. So the package present here is overstated minions with bad effects, right? And so you have this really interesting thing going on where you can either cast 0 to get rid of the effect on Titania. Ebony Maw especially would be very good to hit. Lizard, Maximus, Atuma, yep, works, or Red Skull. Any of these are good hits. Additionally, Typhoid Mary would be a good hit. She'd be okay. She's not as good maybe as Red Skull. Or, I mean, she's on par with Atuma. But the other thing we have is that 1 costs are uniquely susceptible to being destroyed, right? So if you're playing out 1 cost cards, you can play armor to cover them. So that's like another thing, right? But then additionally, you can play armor to protect your Red Skull or your Atuma, right? Because those are also uniquely susceptible to being shanged. And so what you end up having here is this really like densely packed package of like cards that work very well together. And then Enchantress is mostly just here to get rid of the ongoing effect from Red Skull or Lizard. She can't hit Ebony Maw's ongoing because you have to play him before turn 3. So you couldn't like wait till turn 5 and play both of them. That would be quite good, but we just don't have that capacity. Ebony Maw is only 0. He's the weakest, but you take what you got in a lot of these situations. So something like this, again, like just to like think about these cards in a different light. Cause I think a lot of people, if they didn't have Shuri, might not play some of these, right? Certainly like Red Skull. Oh, and then Atuma destroys himself. But if you have armor, that doesn't happen. I don't know if I mentioned that, but with all of these like interplay and all of the cool, like, minutia you can get on, you can get a lot of match percentage points by playing these in very tricksy ways. And I think there's a lot to be said about just how good some of these can really, really be and how overlooked they often are. So, just think about them differently next time you're deck building. All right. Ooh, number 3. We've got even stronger packages. So these are basically just ways of adding power to locations that are difficult to get into and of moving stuff around, right? So the point of this is that one, you can like storm on 3 and then do all kinds of like Juggernaut or Jessica Jones on 4. You can claw into that storm location or another hard to get into location. You can doom. You can Magneto some of their stuff out. It's basically just about being tricksy. But additionally, you can storm and then like Scarlet Witch or Rhino if you think your opponent is going to commit harder than you can to that location. And then additionally, you can fill lanes. Like you can, just put 4 cards into a lane somewhere. And if your opponent like thinks that that's it, they're going to try to beat it by 1. And you have the option of Mr. Fantastic or Claw to get more power in that lane in a way that they were not expecting. And again, all of that just sort of combines into most of a tangible deck list. This isn't really optimized, but again, that's sort of the point, is that this is not what the end list looks like, but it's a way of opening up how you look at all of these cards together to increase your options when deck building, right? Now you might consider some of these that you hadn't otherwise if you're playing some of the other cards listed, right? If you're already playing Magneto and Storm and whatever, you might go, well, what are my last cards going to be, and come back to this and pick some of these, right? Or you might just play generic good cards. Arrow is also on that list. Arrow's in all of these lists. That's the problem. I don't own Arrow, but she should go in all 4 of these. Oh, number 2. All right, now we got huge packages. This list is, again, like this is the one that I'm this is the one that I'm most excited for, because so many people are like, yeah, of course you play these cards. You play the destroy deck, you villain. But some really cool tech here. Bucky Barnes is just good. If you can destroy Bucky Barnes, he's a 2/6. I hate to break it to you, friends, but a 2/6 is good. If you didn't know this. Some other things is that Carnage, so Mysterio being a 2/4 is quite good, but the downside is that you make two 2/0s. So having the ability to eat one with Carnage or destroy one with Deathlock is always a positive, because it means that Mysterio just had upside, right? The 2/4 that also fed a Carnage is very good. You've got something like Ironheart being a 3/0 that's actually a 3/6 if you can get it off. So you can go like Mysterio on 2 into Ironheart on 3 and get the full 3/6 out of it. And then also, Mysterio was like a 210 in total stats, which is sick. If you don't want to go that route and you want to just clog if you go Ironheart, right? And then you Viper the Ironheart to your opponent, you've clogged one of their spots with a rock. but it's worse because it can't get Killmongered. Same with the Mysterio. If you Viper over one of the clones, that's just like, it's a 2 cost, so it can't get Killmongered. It's great. The Hood would work great for this as well, for the Viper and the Carnage package. There's a lot of overlap, right? Because between the Viper and Carnage packages, because it's stuff you want to destroy. So by the same token, it's stuff your opponent doesn't want. So if you give it to them, you're better off. And then finally, this only kind of works with one half and not the other. Like in general, if it's so the reason I included it, if it's turn 3 and you're just like, I don't have a good play for Ebony Maw at this point, right? Because the good play would be Viper, or like a location that's going to lock down on turn 4 anyway, or something that like is hard to get into. You could just Ebony Maw there after having deployed like a card, and you'd be happy with like putting it on your opponent to figure it out if they can win or not. But like, it isn't the worst to just count this as any 1-drop and like eat it on turn 3. But also it's not the worst to be like, here, you hold this with Viper, and then you can Killmonger later and just destroy it and you've locked your opponent out of a lane for the whole game, but also they can't win because you're going to Killmonger it. That's sick. And then obviously Nova has great interplay with Carnage, Deathlock, and Mysterio and Killmonger. Honestly, and Ironheart. The only thing to keep in mind with Nova is that if you've probably come up against this unfortunate reality if you've played this deck at all, is that if you go Nova 1, Bucky Barnes on 2, Destroy effect on 3, you won't get the Winter Soldier won't get the +1 because they die in the order they get played in. So you have to go like Bucky on 2 and then Nova Carnage on 3 if you want it to play out in the way that you do want it to play out. So that's just something to keep in mind. But these again, like, I think the problem with this one, the reason I don't see it is that the Viper package isn't very good. But I also don't see people playing Bucky Carnage Deathlock in non-death death wave shells, and I think that that's a mistake. I think this set of cards is really good, and you see how often I play Carnage. I don't always have room for Bucky. Like, if you're in the Mysterio deck, you don't always have room for it, but if you can make room for it, you know, and you're already playing Carnage, consider Bucky over Lizard. Guess that's what I'm getting at. Number 1. And then we've got the Throbbing packages. So this is mostly based around the ability of Magneto, the unique ability of Magneto, Doc Ock, Polaris, again, Arrow is in this list, but I don't have her, and Juggernaut, to make it hard for your opponent to actually deploy where they want to, and for you to take advantage of that, because if they're trying to fill against Lizard, you can interrupt that by either destroying their, if they play any 1-drop against your Lizard, Killmonger always flips Lizard back to active. You can always Enchantress your Lizard. Be careful, because we're also including Mojo in this list, because if we're moving their stuff around and making it hard for them to guess, like, they don't even know which lanes they're going to fill, my friend, then Mojo's great, because, he's a 2/8, which is a pretty exceptional stat line. Queer representation matters. Mojo's a 2/8. Doc Ock is also a really interesting piece of interruption. There's so many times where you can Doc Ock on 5 and your opponent's like, oh, I wish I had played that Carnage earlier. They just lose because, like, they needed their cards to play out in a very specific order. And it doesn't matter that you just played out like 10 energy worth of cards, because it's all in a really bad lane for them. Like, it didn't go off in the order they needed it to. So Doc Ock, we can also be completely real about this, also loses you some amount, like a non-zero amount of games. You will Doc Ock and you will just lose. And we all have to be okay with that as well, because that happens. But in a deck like this, where you're just trying to keep your opponent, like, unbalanced, we'll say, can be a really back-breaking play, especially into, like, Magneto or even Enchantress. I mean, if you were turning this into a deck, you'd probably also include Shang, although that can be tough with the Mojo thing going on, but Shang unlocks Lizard in the same kind of, like, circumstances that it locks Mojo. So all that to say, again, I don't see these cards getting played like this. I when I talk to people on Discord, I feel like a lot of the time when I talk about stuff like this, I get, oh, I hadn't thought of that, which is really just, that's all this video is trying to get you to think about different ways in which there's overlapping synergy with cards that are already pretty good. Because a lot of if you look at a lot of cards on here, they're already pretty good. And you can bring more to the table in your own playing by thinking about the other cards that are pretty good that you could play with the cards that are pretty good. Or, in Magneto's case, like, excellent. Like, Magneto is an excellent card. And so it's like, what what can I do with this Magneto to bring him to an even higher level and just like get more wins in really interesting and creative ways that I wasn't getting before. That's the whole video. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you find this content elucidating, enlightening, and enriching as always. If you did, the best way to let me know is to subscribe or leave a like or a comment, and especially to join the Discord and give me ideas for future videos. Like, what this whole channel started because I felt like I got done dirty by a much larger content creator, because I was kind of feeding him video ideas and I never got credit, and it hurt, and I'm not going to lie about that. It did hurt. And so, you know, I want this to be a very communal process, and the only way that we can do that is by building a community. So come join the commune, comrade. Have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow.